Hey everyone, this is Tipsy Atris, and I'm back to share a Grixis variant of Jeskai Truths, which got me from Diamond to Mythic in a single day. This list is inspired by a viewer Anon97's desire for a Grixis alternative to the original list, so here's a shoutout and a deck list for you. For those who have not seen the original, I'll link it somewhere on the screen. As usual, since the meta evolves pretty quickly, updates to this list will be found over at Untapped, which I'll link in the video description. I'll leave timestamps on the screen and in the description for the convenience of those who might want to skip ahead to certain portions of the video. Without further ado, this is Grixis Truths. This is a control list packed with removal spells attempting to trade 1 for 1 and eventually refill your hand with the namesake of the deck, See the Truth. The removal suite comprises a full playset of Fatal Push, a 3-1 split between Inquisition of Kozilek and Thoughtseize, 2 Expel from Arasgar, 2 Sheoldred's Edict, and 1 of Rona's Vortex, Cling to Dust, and Brotherhood's End. Fatal Push is prime removal in this meta, taking out almost anything with ease. The synergy between these and Crucias is also phenomenal. The treasure he generates triggers Revolt and the mana needed to cast it. This is probably a strict 4-off that you don't want to cut. Next up, the discard spells. The 3-1 split is because of how fast the meta is. Casting Thoughtseize off a shockland is almost suicide against any aggressive decks. A pretty common play against aggro would be to pitch Thoughtseize to Crucias for a fresh draw. Expel from Arasgar is here partly due to the fact that we have next to no way of interacting with enchantments. While it's not exactly easy to get the City's Blessing, a Crucias sticking on the battlefield can really help push you past 10 permanents. Sheoldred's Edict is absolutely amazing against Planeswalkers. The flexibility it offers with its modes also makes it so that you have much better control over what your opponent sacrifices, especially since we are already running loads of removal. Rona's Vortex kind of functions as the 5th copy of Fatal Push that becomes increasingly relevant in the late game. Tucking answers indestructible creatures, prevents reanimation, and on-death triggers, which are all relevant in the current meta. Cling to Dust is a really cheap spell that really throws a wrench into Graveyard deck's game plan, or at worst, a cheap cantrip. The escape cost can also sometimes be relevant against Drowned in the Loch, where thinning your graveyard renders your spell uncounterable or creature unkillable, or against cards like Tasha, Unholy Archmage. Brotherhood's End is a flexible sweeper that is mostly here to wipe artifacts like Retrofitted Foundry and Colossus Hammer, or to wipe the board against elves. The card draw package is simple, a full playset of Expressive Iteration, and 3 copies of Say the Truth. As much as I want to run a full playset of both, Say the Truth isn't something you want to see in your opening hand. I'm usually teaching them to Crucias because ideally you want to be casting it from exile or the graveyard. Crucias is quite the powerhouse. He turns access lands into life draws, finds your lands when you get mana screwed, ramps and fixes your mana, all at a low cost of only 3 mana. The only drawback is that he's legendary, which is easily bypassed by simply teaching extras to himself. As mentioned earlier, he also makes Fatal Push disgustingly efficient, allowing you to tap out on turn 3 and have an answer for the 4-drop. Arcane Proxy does basically the same thing, reusing spells from your graveyard. Proxy is great for a turn 2 See the Truth into a turn 3 proxy, while Snappy's Flash makes your graveyard live during an opponent's turn. They both have their merits, so go with whatever you like. Graveyard Trespasser is an all-rounder. She has a respectable stat line, forces either a 2 for 1 or a wipe against control, exiles cards with flashback or reanimation targets, and nets you some life in the process. Chandra is a great addition to this shell. Casting a See the Truth off her exile is a huge plus, and her ritual ability curves you nicely into the 7 drops. The only downside is that there's a lot of randomness involved in her exile ability. Nicol Bolas, the Ravager, comes down early to stall the board and becomes quite the bomb when you're able to transform it. The treasures from Crucias and Ritual from Chandra can help you flip it early. Just be mindful of incoming spot removal as it basically costs you all your available mana to flip it. Ashiok Nightmare Muse is somewhat decent, and mostly here for the -3 to deal with whatever we can't deal with. This is likely next to go in my upcoming iterations of the deck. Nicol Bolas, Dragon God, has been amazing so far, with immediate card advantage upon resolution, and basically runs away with the game if left unchecked. He curves nicely from Crucias, and here's where the ramp and fix from Crucias really comes in handy, as 5 colored mana can be really difficult to pull off on turn 4 or 5. Phyrexian Fleshgorger is here to help keep our life total healthy, but to be honest, I'm not quite sold. The ward ability is hardly relevant to us since we are not actively trying to kill our opponents quickly. However, the flexibility between casting it early or late is nice, and a 7/7 is a respectable 3-turn clock. Lastly, Blade Coil Serpent is also likely a cut in future iterations. While the drawing and discarding is nice, it's quite costly as it is at the very least a 6-drop. The haste option has come out relevant a few times where I had to kill a planeswalker, but I believe there are better options at 6 mana. Just like the Jeskai version, this deck is equally or even more mana intensive. The only utility lands are a single Hall of Storm Giants and a single Secret Restoration. Hall of Storm Giants is a respectable clock that is pretty hard to get rid of, and Secret Restoration basically draws you a ton of cards. We are supporting the 8 checklands with 12 shocks and 3 basics. Ideally, the Sulfur Falls should be replaced with Dragonskull Summit since this deck is pretty heavy on black, but I'm out of wall cards at the moment. And that is Grixis Truths. I hope you have fun with this list, and shout out to Anon97 for the idea of trying a Grixis variant of the original shell. If you came this far, do drop me a like and subscribe for more Magic historic content. We just hit 60 subscribers recently, so a huge thank you to all my awesome subscribers. This is Tipsy Atris, adios.